Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I am Brigid Burke and it is now the 27th of August, 2024. It's a nice day here. Good morning, Alex. Good to see you back. It's a rather humid morning out today. So it's not going to be as bad as tomorrow. I think, good morning, Sam. It's kind of one of those mornings where we know that the heat is going to be building back up again. So we will see what comes of it. Today is actually going to be a day. So I'll let everybody know kind of back to work for Mercury direct and back in the routine. Yes. And actually good point. Yeah. Mercury did go direct. I think it technically went direct at some point yesterday. And then today we are definitely in the process of moving forward. Of course, we are still in post-shadow phase, so there's going to be, there still could be some weirdness and disruptions and some loose ends that might need to be tied up. I don't know. I found that this particular Mercury retrograde, it was more, because normally it's full of communication disruptions, and there were a few of those, but I feel for me like it was more a time of revelation. Like things that I didn't know were suddenly, I was like, wait, what's going on there? Like, it was like more like that kind of a thing, like just learning information about stuff that, really, I don't know, just clarified something or at least revealed something going on that maybe I did not recognize was going on. So, to me, this was more of because retrogrades, certainly they can be about disruptions, and they also can be about, corrections of a type, like where we get a do-over, particularly with Mercury retrograde. So, I felt like that there aren't all necessarily do-overs, but it was just like gaining information about the path I was on that made me look at the path differently. Because that's part of it too. If we have some information and we say, okay, well, I have to make a decision about this, and this is what I know about what's going on, then, we may make a decision based on that information. But then what the retrograde, I feel, is doing was kind of like, well, wait, no, that's not entirely what's going on. Within the cartouche deck, which I have over here, it's this card right here. It's the Urias card. When this card comes up, this is a card of something is not what it appears to be, or there's more information that you don't have. There's a number of cards like that in tarot as well. You have like the High Priestess. You could have the Seven of Swords. You could have the Page of Swords. Page of Swords kind of indicates that there's people talking about stuff. Like there's a narrative going around, like a gossipy kind of a thing that you don't know about, right? So, and I've seen like different combinations of these cards. In addition to Urias, we also have another card in this deck called, where is it? Is she at the top here? Yeah, this one, Nepenthes. This is the other one. This is a card that has to do with Nepenthes has to do with what hasn't been revealed yet. Okay, so if somebody asks me a direct question and Nepenthes comes up in a reading, then it says, well, you don't have, it's not a no answer necessarily. It's just simply you don't have all the information right now. Sometimes it can be a no, but a lot of times it's just, and there may be a variety of reasons as to why we're not told things at certain times. Okay, so when Nepenthes shows up, it's a sense of, there's more to be learned about a particular situation. So anyway, point being that I feel like this was a Mercury retrograde that really started to put more pieces of the puzzle in place for a lot of things, spiritually, in terms of my work, in terms of just other stuff going on in my life. It's been very interesting, some family stuff and things like that. I was talking to my sister last night, and she's been kind of going through that more in terms of dealing with family and ancestral stuff for her. But yeah, there's a whole lot of kind of trying to, see, having the big jigsaw puzzle, if you've ever done those, and you just, sit there and you just stare at it for hours, and you're like, because these pieces go somewhere, and every piece you pick up to fit in isn't the right one, and then all of a sudden in a moment of whatever, you pick it up and you get like 10 pieces right in a row, and you're just like, oh, like, so the picture starts to be revealed. And it's kind of that kind of a thing, that moment of you've been frustrating yourself staring at it for too long, and then finally, all of a sudden, like, you walk away for a minute and come back and you have a fresh look and you're able to kind of see it a little bit differently. So, in any case, I was going to talk about like a little bit about my schedule, because today's going to be a day I have been, if you've been watching the live streams or catching up with them over the last couple of days, I have been on the run and I have been exhausted. I've been dealing with stuff going on in my head, which I kind of was putting off to a sinus infection, although it might be something else. I know that when I'm going through certain kinds of spiritual shifts, that sometimes that also happens, like, because it's like something's happening in the pineal gland, something's happening in the top of the head, and that was the area. It was like inflamed. It was like, and then it's finally seems better, but I know that does kind of come in waves. So I do hope that's done, because that really I feel exhausted when that happens, and I have to take a break, which is not a bad thing. Jenny was over yesterday and she was kind of yelling at me for like not taking a break. I was like, Jenny, I had like 3 days off next week. She goes, oh, whoopee. I was just like, well, I'm sorry, I still, I can't just be like, okay, I'm tired, I'm going to take 3 weeks off and not do anything. I can't do that, as much as I would like to, when you kind of run your own business. And when I have been in months where I have not, like I said, I've finally been able to pay all of this month's bills, which is great. I still don't have enough for the mortgage, but, I've just been rolling with it, and like, okay, the money comes in as the money comes in, and then of course I'll be back to a regular paycheck in mid-September, so that will be good. So, but it's been tough from that vantage point, and I can't just sit around and helplessly say, okay, well, I'm just going to wait for, you have to be out there, you have to do stuff. And I know, and her to her point about that, she had said, well, you and I have worked really hard for years. It seems like not really, it seems like an injustice to be called to this kind of work and then be expected to work just as hard as you did over those 14 years. And I said, well, I see her point for sure. It can be exhausting to run around and do a lot of different things. But on the other hand, I'm saying, but this is work. It's not like, okay, I'm coming in and working on, the IT, the computer system for this one or that one, or I'm sitting in this boring meeting about digitizing master's theses, or I'm sitting in this boring meeting. Instead, it's just like, okay, I'm working on stuff that I'm actually interested in. So, it can still be tiring. Let's not kid ourselves. And there is still admin that goes along with it. You still have to do the budgeting. You still have to do all the legal work. You still have to figure out your finances and your taxes. There's still all that crap that nobody likes to do. Or maybe some people like to do it. I don't know. It's not my favorite thing. But, you do it. It's just, okay, and that's a minuscule portion of what the rest of it is. And eventually, at some point, you make enough money, you can hire somebody else to do that. So, for right now, at least, this is what it is. But, overall, it's like I said, it's just when I'm trying to do certain things on a schedule. So as people may have noticed, I don't have the tarot videos out yet this week because I've still only done 2. Yesterday, I had, Jenny and I were preparing this presentation, and we're in good shape. Thankfully, we did hear from Melissa as well, so she's going to join us, which is awesome. And then I had something that went on in the afternoon. Right. I had the Katonia live stream. I did that yesterday, in which I talked a little bit about feelings and empathy and our ideas of masculine and feminine and emotion and things like that, which was interesting, where I was looking at some of the, not only political stuff, but some comments I had gotten on my videos on the other channel. So anyway, people want to check that out, that video's over there on the Katonia podcast channel. And then, of course, in the evening, I had another Rouhani session, I was just I was just so exhausted. I remember the hour before I had to go get online and meet with her. I literally took a nap, and I was just like out. And so when I woke up and was talking to her, and we're going through stuff, and I'm just like, I just like, I was like, even the Rouhani, doing the Rouhani actually helps. While I do it for somebody, it's like I get some of my own, But I was just like, oh, I'm just so wiped, and then I had a whole bunch of messages to answer after that. So it's been busy. So today I'm just going to do that. And Azrael has indicated that he would like to do a channeling session today. So I need to fit that in. This is my day I go walking with my sister, and I'm not giving that up because it's a chance for me to get out. And then it's also, this is my D&D afternoon as well. So we'll see whether everybody's available to do that. If they are, then that's part of my afternoon as well. So I'm really just hoping to get readings done today. I'm hoping to get, and then the channeling session, which I need to edit at some point this week and post. And I'm going to have to get into the new podcasts for next week. Tomorrow, I really want to catch up on all of the projects that I've promised by the end of the month. That I've only made a start on, and I want to get the Kickstarter together for my school. That I really want to be live by the end of the week, if possible. I don't know if it's going to happen. Kickstarter sometimes takes 2, 3, 4 days to evaluate, but I have done projects there before, so maybe it won't be such a long thing. So we'll see. But anyway, so we're moving along, and I guess if I had to be totally honest, everything's actually pretty good. Now, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about on today's live stream. It keeps wanting to go around the theme of completion, and maybe that's to Alex's point about, it's the end of Mercury retrograde, and maybe it's the kind of energy and stuff that goes along with that. Because one of the things that, good morning, Sudha, joined just in time for me to start talking about, I'm getting past all the updates. So I'm going to be, oh, I'm sorry, that does remind me of one other update. I am going to be doing another intuitive development class this Sunday. There's going to be 10 weeks of them. And this week we're going to be looking at, last week we kind of gave an overview. We talked about grounding, protection, psychic blocks. Did just some really, by the time we got through all of that stuff, we only had time for just a little bit of exercise but this week we're going to do actually more intensive applications and exercise, looking more at energy fields, auras, what they are, what they mean, how one can potentially see them, what it means when you can see them, and that kind of a thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about, perceiving people's energy in that way. So so that's going to be the topic of this coming Sunday. And so, like I said, people can pop in and out. They can pay for individual sessions if they want to join. I mean, there are people who can pay for all 10 weeks. At this point, I think we're a little past that. So I might actually have to take that option down. But nonetheless, it's one of those things that people can say, oh, I'm going to do this week, and maybe I'm not going to do another week for whatever reason. So the classes are there. So we're talking about the end of Mercury retrograde. And I think at the end of it, there's this idea that was kind of coming into my head about the repetitions that we go through when something is over. It's almost like a kind of trauma response, because something is ended, okay? It's finished, and you've been told you're done, you're finished. But it's almost like a post-traumatic stress disorder kind of a thing. It's like you still, your body still hasn't absorbed the fact that the thing is done. And especially if it's something that has been taking up a lot of your time. Now this really, when I think about it, this could be something that could be positive or negative in terms of our subjective experience of it. And so it could be, obviously we think of it in a negative sense, where if you've been through some kind of a traumatic thing and it's finally over, you can feel a sense of relief, but you still may have, it's like the flashback thing. You still may have this sense of, you still may dream about it, or you still may have emotions about it, or you may still find yourself thinking or putting yourself back in a particular situation. And, because true release, true completion, true release means we're done. We don't go back. Good morning, Jenny. Good morning. I was just talking about our little session yesterday. So when we talk about completion, when we talk about this sense of release, a lot of times if we have been, whether we've gotten this assurance from our spirit guides, whether we've gotten this assurance just through a feeling that we have, like we go through something, or we have a healing session, or like if somebody, for example, has a Rahani session, or they have some kind of other releasing session, something that releases vagus nerve, something that releases, there are certain physical modalities that release the past trauma from the bones and things like that. And good morning. So when we have this kind of trauma release, sometimes we don't, it's like, even after we have it, it's like the mind and the body hadn't quite caught up. I mean, one thing that Rahani tries to, at least it works towards doing, is what they call the alignment of the 4 bodies and the 3 minds. And what that is your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies in alignment with your conscious mind, your kind of personal unconscious, and the collective. It kind of lines up, it tries to line all of them up and keep them together. Because frequently we have trouble when things end when they're all out of sync. When we're out of this this space of being able to, it's like, in other words, the mind knows that something's finished, the body doesn't get it. Or sometimes the reverse. Like I said, you've had a release from the body, but the mind is still in the habit of going back to the old script or thinking that you're still in the old place. On a more instinctual level, you can observe this sometimes in animals. Like if you adopt an animal that has been abused, okay, and now they're in a new place where they're not being abused and where they're going to be well taken care of, but they still may react and respond as though they're going to be abused. And that can be almost a lifetime of trying to get past that. Like, for example, I have people who have pets who, or people talk about their pets having an affinity for either men or for women. Like my sister has a dog. Her dog is called Boo. And the dog is called Boo because it's easily scared. And Boo has been with her since she lived in California. I think Boo has been with her for like more than 10 years now. And when she adopted, Boo was a foster. My sister used to do fostering. And she's an adorable little dog. She actually looks kind of like, oh, good morning. And so, yeah, she's this little dog, and she's cute. She looks like a dachshund, actually, but I think she's actually a Mexican hairless is what she is. And she's a mix of something else, too. But she's got those kind of little floppy ears. She's absolutely the cutest little dog. But she always, she sees anybody, she growls. The only person she likes is my sister, which is hard if my sister goes away. Like, my sister is going to be, her husband's staying home to take care of the dogs, but she's going to California mid-month. And so, the dog is like, kind of gives her husband a little bit of the stink eye. But again, she said it seems that Boo was probably abused, probably kept in a certain situation. And in particular, Boo doesn't seem to like men. I mean, I don't think Boo likes women either, to be honest. I mean, I was so shocked because I went over to her house. It might have been 4th of July. And we were sitting outside, and Boo came and sat under my sister's chair, and I was sitting next to my sister. And all of a sudden, I feel like this nose against the bottom of my leg, and I look, and there's Boo, like, looking up at me and, like, kind of putting her nose against it and looking. I was like, oh, that's progress. Of course, the progress gets undone at the next one, but you know what I mean? It's the point being. Oh, and good morning, Pat. So yeah, there's the, there's this whole thing of, where we even when we're out of the situation, we can't. Our body and our minds don't adjust. Now, rationally, we may be saying to ourselves, oh, well, I should be able to adjust to this. My mind, and we may start beating ourselves up over it. We may just be kind of like, why can't I let this go? I know this is finished. It's not like an animal where the animal still just is kind of, it has been so affected, their energy and what they are, that when they're in a situation, it takes them a while to realize, oh, okay, I'm not in an unsafe situation now. I'm okay. I'm not going to be hurt. I am in a place where I'm loved. I am in a place where people care about me and are interested in me. But it's funny because when we have that extra layer of rationality, it's almost like a double whammy, because it's like you have your own instincts. You have the instincts of the body, but then there's the instinct of the mind, and the mind wants to come in, and that's kind of the saboteur that comes in the mind. I always associate that a little bit with Seven of Swords energy, because there's the sabotaging that comes in and makes you think that the mind keeps telling you that something is not over, even if kind of you felt it in the body. I had something like that when I was in Ireland. I used to go for these types of massage that were called. There was a certain I think it was the Drogheda. What do they call themselves? Was it the Drogheda Holistic Center? It was something like that. In any case, it was right along the North Quay in Drogheda. They had a building there. I think they shared with a nail salon or something like that. And I remember her name was Gemma. She was wonderful. She was the massage therapist that I went to. And she was practiced in something called Lomi Lomi. which is actually a Hawaiian technique. It's a Hawaiian technique for releasing certain types of traumas and memories from the body. And there's many, many modalities that do this, that are meant to release energy from the body. But she had also learned something that was very similar lines called bone washing. And I've never been able to find anybody outside of that area that does it. I'm sure there's other people that do it. But even in the United States, I've not been able to find anybody who does bone washing, even if I can find people who do lomi lomi. Okay? But I remember she did this particular technique for me. And it's probably the first time since I've had any kind of body work done. Even when I did an intuitive body work before I quit my job with Megan Gouldner, who's fantastic. I mean, I recommend her highly. She's absolutely fantastic. If you're in the Madison, Florham Park, New Jersey area, she's fantastic. If she's still there. I mean, she was, and she does really long sessions. I think my session was supposed to be an hour and a half, and it ended up being 2.5 hours. She gets to the root of everything. But this one I had in Ireland, I literally walked out of there, and for the first time, I've had foot pain my entire life because I've had trauma to my feet when I was very young. I had no pain in anything. I literally was just holy crap, what just happened here? And literally mentally I felt clear for a long time. But what you find is that, that's why even with other healing modalities, things kind of come in waves, and you find yourself back in those spaces again, because it's the body hasn't figured out that it's there's some aspect of you that still hasn't figured out that it's done. It's almost still resonating in your energetic field, or like boomerangs, it kind of goes away and it comes back. So and eventually I think the only way to really cure something like that, and again, we may do certain modalities like Rahani that speed things up. And because we live in a world where everything is expected to be solved in a quick way. This is why a lot of times people want to go to medications to solve things, right? They, I want a pill that's going to solve something, right? And again, I just want to be clear. I'm not disparaging people who are on certain medications and need them, for whatever their situation. There's just sometimes when you maybe having a short-term crisis or something where doctors may be just quick to prescribe something, probably for insurance reasons, because they're worried that if you're not in a good state, that if you catastrophizing, if somebody decided to become very depressed and do something to themselves, that they would be liable. So a lot of times they'll just do that to say, oh, well, I gave them something, something that they can point to, which is, I think, most of the reason that they do that. Either that or they're just trying to give money to pharmaceutical companies, which is a whole other topic. But that can happen. And so people want this short-term fix. If you think about in medical insurance in the USA, where if you want to go if somebody needs counseling, let's just say, I remember during COVID when people needed a lot of mental health, the counselors were booked. People I know who would kind of wandered away from the field were nope, I'm back in and I'm fully booked all the time. But insurance, I remember generally speaking, if you have good insurance, it might pay for up to 6 sessions. Unless you're on some kind of a medication or unless you can prove something, they don't usually want to pay for therapy past a certain point. And when I think about that, I'm okay, if you think about somebody who's cognitively trying to unwind a knotty problem, or trying to finish something or trying to get through it, and you get 6 weeks to talk to a therapist, and that's it. It's almost well, come on, hurry up, get through all of your trauma and your angst and everything else. That should be solvable in a short period of time. It's like you have a broken leg. Okay, we set it in X number of weeks and it's supposed to heal, right? And that's the problem. Carl Jung, I remember, said that. He said, you cannot treat the mind like it's another organ of the body. Or you can't treat the psyche, really more accurately, like it's another organ of the body. Because it doesn't operate the same way. It doesn't heal in the same way. It's far more complex, and it's interconnected to too many other things. Now, your body's also complex and interconnected to things, including your mind. Okay? So it's not that can't be, but when you're talking about healing some kind of a physical trauma to the body, depending on how severe it is, generally our bodies, our immune systems kick in, different things happen to replace and to fix, within the body. The assumption that people have been making, and this is my problem with handling things that connected to mental health from a very material standpoint, is that we treat the mind and mental health almost like it's another organ of the body, and in a certain amount of time it's just going to be better. If you've got childhood trauma, and if you're somebody who believes in past lives or concurrent lives, and you have trauma across other lifetimes that you don't know how it's affecting you in this lifetime, when we don't know all that stuff that's going on, then that's a very complex thing to unravel. When I do Rouhani, it's like we talk about using the violet flame as a means of getting through it. And as anybody who's gone through Rouhani, you know that it's like, initially you may have that initial feeling of joy and that release of the weight. And then it's like, then you might start to have memories of things. Then maybe you even might start to have bad dreams. And then you might start to have, you might have all this stuff that kind of starts to go on, and it kind of comes in waves. And then as you go through more sessions, it's just kind of like, and then more things get uncovered. It's like, I think the way I've described it is there's the way in which it's almost like doing a house cleaning. With a lot of energy modalities, it's kind of like we're going through and we're throwing, we're examining and throwing away one thing at a time. With Rouhani, it's like you get the dumpster out and you just start throwing shit away. It really works very, very fast in that way. But sometimes I think too, there's that element of needing to kind of catch up. And we start telling ourselves cognitively, I should be doing more to catch up. And you want to be careful about that. You kind of want to allow things to just happen the way they're going to happen. Like a lot of times in connection with I was getting receptivity, sorrow, and completion. So when things are completed, there may be a certain amount of sorrow as we release certain things. That's connected with the Nine of Swords energy, at least in this in the Osho Zen deck. Is connected with with that release of sorrow. But as we know, anybody who reads tarot knows that the nines, you're moving towards the end, again, towards completion. Something is actually done. But that sorrow, it's almost like, you're still, it's like having the cold, right? You have a cold and you know how it is, like the actual cold virus may be finished doing what it's doing, but you still may be blowing your nose or coughing for a few weeks afterwards. Like there's still more that's kind of trying to repair itself and get itself back into alignment. So what I find is that it goes in waves for people. They'll have like waves of joy, and then all of a sudden they'll have memories, or they might have a bad dream about something, and then it calms down and it's another good wave again, and it kind of does that. But it's like the way that works is it's like working backwards through your system. That's the way it's been explained to me, is that it works backwards through your trauma. So you might start with something very recent, and then it starts to move back to things maybe that are from childhood, and maybe even from other situations as well. But it continually just kind of works through and works through and works through. So so this is kind of a constant ongoing process that we have with with trying to complete, and basically getting our entire being to believe that something is actually complete. So I'm hoping that concept makes sense. I'm going to start doing our reading because we're almost at 7:30 here. But it's, I've been thinking about it, and I experienced some of that myself when I know that a crisis has passed or has finished. I think part of the reason that we end up kind of repeating crisis patterns is because we never quite get into the headspace to say that we've gotten beyond them. To really truly let something go is to let it go in the mind and in the body, and eventually, and I think the only way sometimes for that is, rather than get frustrated with the fact that, here this comes up again, is to recognize that every single time it comes up, it's less. And if you really were to sit down and evaluate and think and look at that kind of stuff, you would realize that, the intensity of it gets less and less and less. And I have found that with certain things that I have been really attached to over time. You have a release, and then you go through energy therapy or whatever you're doing again, and then you have another release, and then you encounter the situation again. And each time you encounter it, it becomes less and less stressful. You kind of say, okay, yeah, there's this thing, and it starts to have less and less of an impact, because because now cognitively you're able to realize that as you're going through it, that, okay, maybe it's not going to be the catastrophe that it was in this particular situation. But we have to be open to allowing that. Very true about intensity lessening. Yes, and that's what I found. Like I said, when I have issues around security and money, which, I'm Taurian, that's always a thing for me. I've just found, like, if I think about how I was with the business in 2021 versus where I am now, and it's interesting because also I've found that as I've really let go of worrying so much about, what the bottom line is going to be at the end of the month, and whether it's going to meet the same bottom line I had when I was working full time. Once I started just letting go of that and saying, whatever, stuff will get paid, whatever. I don't have to worry about it. I'll figure it out. I just, keep persisting with it every day. I find that more is coming in now that I've stopped, because again, you let go of the mental control of it, and you just say, okay, we're working our way through it. And yeah, and rather than get mad at myself, nobody likes to feel that way, okay? Nobody wants to feel anxious. I mean, this is why we do, different types of therapy and stuff, because of all kinds, whether we're doing actual therapy with a psychotherapist, whether we're doing energy healing, whether we're doing spiritual coaching, whatever you're doing, or doing readings for yourself, whatever you're doing to try to kind of work your way through a different process. You kind of, it's, again, you can look at it, and I can do a reading for you, and I can tell you, oh, okay, this is what it says to do. And that may click with you, and you may say, oh yeah, that's right. But again, it's an idea and a thought that still has to be absorbed into your energy. And before it is, I could, get off a Zoom call or hang up a phone with you, and you could feel good, and then 2 hours later, you're right back in the place where you started from, because the mind still doesn't believe it. It doesn't trust it, It wants to say, yes, but, look at all this around you. What if this happens? And what if that happens? It likes to do that. And over time, you're able to shut that voice out more and more, because the voice is really just, it's not a voice it's that voice of doom that should be there as part of that fight or flight response when you have an actual danger. That should be an instinct that kicks in when you're really in danger. That's the time when you want to have that voice and listen to it. But oftentimes that voice ends up coming in because we are so cognitive, because we rationalize everything, or because we start analyzing and looking at all the ins and outs and all the possible solutions and stuff, which again, in certain situations, that's the thing, that's a good thing, That's a thing to do. But when we do this with stuff that's already complete, all we're doing is, it's like we're just going back and playing something from the past over and over again. And thinking, but we were talking about my mother. She started this thing. Well, maybe it's not entirely new, but she was talking to my sister. My sister's birthday is next week, and there were a lot of September family birthdays. Most of these people are dead. Okay, my brother, my grandmother, my father died this month. Well, his birthday wasn't this month, but he died. Her father, my mother's father, my grandfather, and who else had died this month? There was somebody else's birthday. I can't remember. Anyway, there's a whole lot of birthdays that were this month, and all these people. Oh, my mother's sister. That's right. My Aunt Sophia. She had died, and she was also a September birthday. So my sister said she was over yesterday, and my mother's going through birthday cards that she has, and she's talking about all these birthdays. Like, well, it's my father's birthday, and it's this one's birthday, and my sister's like, I had to bite my tongue from saying, all these people are dead. Like, the only living person whose birthday it is mine. Like, meaning hers, not mine. My birthday's not in September. But that was it. But my mother, and she keeps doing this. She keeps saying, oh my God, there's so many birthdays this month. And it's like, you're not buying gifts for all of these people. Like, you're not, maybe she likes to go visit grave sites, which is something that she does like to do. She likes to go and put flowers on the graves. She's very which is fine. I mean, if that's something that she feels the need to do. But my sister just says, I'm just getting a little freaked out by the way that she is so focused on people who are dead and gone, and still treating them as though they're still here and we're still going to do something, which really actually kind of has a really archaic vibe to it, doesn't it? I mean, where people go to the grave sites and bring food and do stuff like that. But I think this might be a little bit different from that. It's less of an ancestor veneration than more of it's sort of an inability to accept that that's gone, that the person is gone. And these people have been gone for years. I mean, my brother's been dead for, what is it now? 18 years now? It's 18, wait a second now. He died in 1989, so do the maths on that one. And her father died in 1979. I mean, these are people who have been gone for a really, really long time. So it's not like this happened last year and, you're still not quite through it. Anyway, it's just, it just to the point of kind of like when something's completed and something just somehow doesn't, the completion's not fully accepted by the body. Now, our center card today is isolation. Okay. Isolation. This is the Three of Swords. And again, as you see, this is the idea of breaking out of a space that is, where somebody feels frozen over, where they feel cut off. And again, if we're talking about completion, the center feeling may be that sense of isolation. Sometimes when we are in a crisis, it's when we feel like we're cornered and maybe don't have the support or don't have, people are against us rather than we have people on our side. Or it just feels like the universe is against us in some way. So we may feel isolated, and this may provide that feeling where we feel, very, very cold in a certain sense. Now, the inner feeling of which we are unaware is interesting. We have playfulness, which is this is the Page of Wands energy. So there's an intensity there. There's a desire to play. So it's saying internally, okay, we're at a space of completion. There's still this feeling of isolation, but inside there's a sense of, okay, I'm in this new space and I want to explore. I want to play. I want to do something new, or I want to turn something into play. Like I was saying about the work stuff, it's like when it's play, then it's not so much work, even though certain aspects of it may still be things we don't like to do. There's still this aspect of just having playing with the environment. And the external feeling of which we're aware is actually the Star card in this one, which is called silence in this deck. Okay. So it's the idea that, so when there's silence, and the meaning of this card, if you have the book, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do except be in the silence of where you are right now. And again, this is what's pregnant with possibility, okay? This is about possibility and playing with the possibilities that we have, right? But we still feel like we're in this space, like this cold kind of cut off space. And what it's really telling us to do, and again, we keep kind of going back to this is the Lovers card, okay? But the Lovers is about, it's about, first of all, it doesn't necessarily have to be about romance and romantic relationships. I mean, it could be for some people. And sometimes that isolation, if the thing that they're trying to move past has to do with past relationships or past grief about relationships, if anybody watching this is having something like that, an old breakup or something like that one hasn't really absorbed or gotten through or, has been traumatized by, this could indicate opening yourself up to love in that sense. But if that's not the case, then this is still about the idea of opening yourself up to love. And that's a hard thing to talk about too. That probably could be a whole session in and of itself. When I'm thinking about it, I should probably talk about that, because what are we talking about when we're talking about love? Again, when you're talking Plato, he talks about different ideas about love. He talks about kind of love that is more animalistic or instinctual versus love that is, quote unquote, higher. That's the way they'll often talk about it is love that has to do with the physical, which is more the lower chakras, and the ones from the heart center up, which is more about connecting with somebody on more of an empathetic level, on more of an intimacy level that goes beyond the physical. Okay. My feeling is, again, that's holistic. But again, in certain types of relationships, obviously, if you love your child, it's not a physical kind of a love, right? If you love your parents or your family, that's not that kind of love. But a lot of times when we hear the word love, that may be what we think of, or we may think of something that's very lightweight and very naive, like romantic love that comes about when we first. Sorry, they're here to pick up the rubbish right now. There's different ideas about love. So there's love in terms of how we feel about, that goes beyond the kind of thing that happens in romantic love. I've talked a lot about people who, when they first meet and fall in love, like when you're a teenager, or when you're the first time you have your crushes and you have things like that happen, and that kind of thing can happen throughout life. They're kind of fun, actually, to be able to feel that way. But when you're actually in a situation where you're in a real relationship, where you make a commitment, where you're married, or whether you're living together, it's a different dynamic. I mean, it can have elements of that, but those elements come in and out. And those are not what they're defining as love here. I mean, they could be an element of it, but what they're more defining as love is the idea of just, it's more unconditional. It has less to do with the person, or how they look, or how you physically feel towards them, or how you, or how they fit into your agenda. See, that's the thing too. Loving somebody, even if they're not doing the thing that you want them to do, or that you think they should be. It's not about making that person into something that they're not. Real love means you accept a person as they are. Now, mind you, not everybody as they are people we necessarily want in our lives. But there is this, that's really when you're talking about loving somebody. So that means that, as you get older, as maybe people don't look as good as they did maybe when they were young, that it's not like, oh, okay, well, I'm tired of you now, and now I'm going to go move on and find something else. Real love goes beyond that. Okay. So our outcome card today is clinging to the past. Okay, so this is Five of Cups. Now, I don't necessarily see this as a negative, but I think what this is really kind of saying is that if we've been in a space of isolation and we recognize we're in this new space that we want to play, we have to allow love to kind of do its thing. When we talk about real love, and even just love of self too, because that's the other thing too. The person we often hate the most is ourselves. We often really, because, as I talked about, we beat ourselves up, over what I'm doing, what I'm not, I should be over this. I should be past this. I'm a bad person. I shouldn't have, I had this happen before and I did the same thing again, and you kind of, and it's like, no, you just kind of gotta flow, until eventually, like I said, you just let time do its thing. Let the energy of the universe do its thing. And that clinging to the past is always assuming that it's going to be the way it was before, or it's going to be the thing that we did before. But I tend to look at the Five of Cups a little more positively, because I feel like, okay, yeah, there's this past thing, but it's like now this is the opportunity to actually let something go. Okay, we're constantly talking about letting go, but it can take time for the past to clear out. It's like a continual process where we move in circles, and it can be very, very hard to let go when especially if something has really affected us in a very profoundly emotional way. And again, this is going to be different for every single person. All of us have had different levels of trauma in our lives, and some of them have been more severe than others. But nonetheless, whatever your trauma is the thing that you're working through. And you have to remember that, especially if you're somebody on a spiritual path and working and trying to do spiritual discipline, you're going to be harder on yourself. And this is the card that flipped up today from Moonology. Virgo, you are good enough. This is a full moon in Virgo card. You are good enough. That interesting? You're good enough. That seems to be kind of that core message there, that, yeah, you are good enough. You don't, Virgo, the reason I think that's Virgo is because Virgo can be about being a perfectionist, like everything just has to be exactly right or it's not right. We all feel like we have to be perfect. If you grew up with organized religion in the West, you may have had that beaten into the idea of you need to and again, I talk about it in the beginning of my book, St. Paul saying when we all have to strive to be perfect like Christ, and it's like, no, you just strive to be who you are. And, if you just allow life to move through you, things may not always happen in the way or in the order that you want them to, but they eventually happen the way they need to. So anyway, I hope that's all helpful. I'm so glad that so many of you have joined me today. I've got quite a long list of people today, which is awesome. And I think some of you, also watch over on Katonia as well. So welcome over here if you haven't been on here before. Really happy that everybody could join me today. And I do hope today's Tuesday, right? So yes. You're welcome. You're welcome, Alex. And so I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. And of course, I will be back on tomorrow morning. Hi and goodbye. Hi and goodbye. Thanks, Pat. I'll be seeing you tomorrow, I think. And so I will be back. And so in the meantime, take care. Have a good day. And you're welcome, Suda. And I will see all of you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. You're welcome, Sam. Take care.